Many of you already know the history of Crafter's Companion with Sara and how she got to where she is. But also, if you didn't know, there was someone really, really important also cheering her along the way and giving her a helping hand when it comes to some of the past products that you may have seen. And that, of course, is Sara's dad, Frank. Frank, it's an absolute pleasure to have you actually even here in the studio. Thank you so much.
It's a little bit frightening, if I tell the truth. I've never done anything like this before, so please bear with me.
Oh, don't you? We will be absolutely fine. I know so many people are, kind of eager to hear your take on, obviously, the backstory of Crafter's Companion. So, first of all, you have a background with engineering. Is that correct?
Yes, I served my time as a student apprentice, mechanical engineer, and that was for a big company that I'll not mention. But they gave me a really, really good education, which I've always appreciated.
Yeah, that's so interesting to hear, because we did have a really quick chat actually with Ben as well just before we went on the show to hear your story. We could have sat for ages and ages. But when it comes to the fantastic story, of how Sara first set out, we've heard of it from Sara's point of view. What's your perspective on how Sara's got to where she is now?
Well, Sara, while she was at York Uni, she did a year's work placement with a craft company, and while she was there she became involved in doing the trade shows, and the cards, everyone was able to make a card. This one I didn't design, this is just a card maker, and you could make a card, but you had to just buy a stock envelope.
Yeah.
And one evening Sara came home and she says, "Dad, if you can design a board or a jig that will make an envelope to fit the cards that we can make, I've got a business plan." So between us we sat down, and Sara was the brains behind it, I was just the doer. But she told me exactly what she wanted, and a few months later it transpired. In fact, the way that it transpired, we used to buy the paper and card for making cards from wholesalers or distributors. And one time I was there, I saw they had a big industrial envelope making machine, and I looked at that and I thought, so every card, every envelope, it doesn't matter what shape it is, what size it is, as long as you start from a square piece of paper or card.
Right.
And from then onwards, it all fell into place.
Yeah.
So we came up with what's famous today, the enveloper. Nice easy name, it tells us what we do. And the first one was made by a local company, a friend of mine in the village where we lived, and it was just made out of MDF, and it could only make 4 envelopes. But it made the first 4, and the main 4, the C6, 5-inch square, DL, and the C5. So I developed the board that would make an envelope that would fit all of those. So I'll demonstrate a one for you.
Yeah, please do. That would be really good.
Just to show you. So in the instructions it tells you what paper size you need. So for
I've got these amazing overhead cameras, so you can put it in front of you and they'll see.
Oh, thank you.
Also, you don't have to put your posh voice on because you just make me look bad. So if you keep using your posh voice, it makes me sound really common. So you can just use our normal voice.
Well, all right then.
Frank used to put on her posh voice when she was on Crafters TV.
We don't call it my posh voice, I call it my telephone voice.
Telephone voice. We've all got one of them.
But so a lot of people out there will have one of these still somewhere in the attic or in the bottom of the craft stash. But if it tells you to use lines B and D to make a C6, and it tells you that you want a 21 centimetre square. So we've taken this 21 centimetre square, I cut it on the crafter's guillotine, and it tells us to use lines B and D. So B twice, and then D twice. Cut the corners out, and then just fold. Wow. It really is as simple.
And it's so fascinating to see, Frank, because obviously we do that nowadays with whether it's the Ultimate Pro or the emblem maker, but you're using it from like the original.
Well, this original, there it's made, I haven't got the time to glue it together, but it really is, it's as simple as that, but it took a long time getting there, and the first time she went on TV with it, it sold out plus.
It did.
I was going to say, Frank, so how hard was it in the early days to be able to keep up with the demand of people wanting to get their hands on this? I guess it must have been like quite tough to be making them as people were buying them, because it flew out, didn't it, when you first brought it to the screens?
Well, the first time Sara was on Create and Craft there, and they reduced the order size because they weren't sure on it. But we'd already had them produced, not paid for, but produced. And the theory was we'd pay for them with the receipts from the TV. And then it was the show that she was on as the sidekick again, but the big one just didn't work. So they brought her on, and her first time on TV, no, she didn't feel the way that I feel now. She was a lot more confident then. But, you know, it just went wild.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
A huge success. But as I said earlier, they were made by a local company in the village, all in wood. But we knew that we wanted them to be made in plastic, which would be a lot better, a lot faster, a lot stronger actually. But after 6 months, the guy who was making them just threw in the towel, and he says, Frank, I'm not making any windows now, I'm just making envelopers and top scores.
Oh my gosh.
So by that time, we were able to organise having injection moulding tool made. And from then on, they went purple. And I don't have one here, but I don't know how many there are in the world, but we know that there's more than a few.
Yeah, maybe.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands, Dad. Dad, can you remember them first few thousand that we made? And our Helen was still at school. Can you remember? She was only 15. Yeah. And I used to pay her 5p each one. So my dad used to go on, they would make about 1,000 a week. My dad would go and pick them up from the joiner, bring them home. I paid our Helen 5p to blast not the cobwebs, the sawdust off, and then put the stickers on. Can you remember those?
Amazing.
Look at the stickers. And then those instructions, can you remember we used to just photocopy them? And
really?
And I remember writing the instructions, and so yes, there's only 30,000 of those original envelopers in circulation.
I thought there was 32 actually.
Oh, well, you know.
And I've got a few of them left. I hid.
Have you got a few?
I've got a few. Well, I'd like to do today actually. I'd be prepared to give the top score and the enveloper.
Yes, I was just going to say, can we do that?
Wow. I'm happy to do that.
Will you sign it for everyone as well?
I will sign the back of both of them.
Yes.
Do you know something? That genuinely, me and Ben didn't know that. We did not know that you were going to do that. That is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for doing that. You know, I know so many are going to be loving that opportunity. Just quickly as well, though, Frank, you also were the kind of like the creator of the rocket blocks as well, weren't you?
Well, that was after this one, but we right from the beginning we were doing rubber stamps on to a standard rubber.
Right.
But we found that there was a lot of problems, and I'm getting the same problems now. You know, I don't know whether it's an annual milestone that you go through, but you know, eventually you do develop dexterity problems. And I was doing shows for Sara.
With Sara. I mean, I will admit, Ryan, if we ever had 2 on a weekend, I'd send the B team off. So my dad would take a team up and do one consumer show, and I'd do another one. So, but with Sara, generally, Dad, make it sound good.
Well, sometimes, let's say, if we could get 2 shows in the same day, we'd do 2 shows. It was as simple as that.
Yeah.
Sara was the A team, and I was the also-rans. But it worked, and we were finding, talking to customers, that, oh, I'd love to be able to stamp, but I just can't. So again, we sat down, she says, Dad, sort it. So the only blocks that were available at the time were just flat ones. Mm-hmm. And going right back to the times of Caxton and the printing press, and even before that, wallpapers, way back in even Elizabethan times, were made from blocks and you just stamped it onto a wall.
Right.
But it was flat, and this was the problem that was being created with lesser dexterous people not being able to do a good stamp, so they were just not trying.
Yeah.
So I put my thinking cap on again, and I developed the rocker block. Now the concept behind this is,
It's all right, if you put it down on the table and they'll come in close and have a little look.
right, well, it's actually shaped, it's curved, so that when you use it, instead of just straight down flat, you actually rocked it.
Yeah.
But then also, with the rubber stamps, a lot of the time, once you ink them up, you get a background.
That's right, yeah.
And then if you went down flat, you would get a lot of, let's call it overspray.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I designed a rib on each side. There was a lot of work. There was actually more work and development went into this than what went into the enveloper. Because when you're producing a stamp, if you think about it like a lump of dough for a pizza,
yeah.
If you press down on it, some of it's displaced. So it's got to go somewhere. And basically the same thing was happening with a rubber stamp.
Right.
So we tried calculating mathematically, a bit of trial and error, and a lot of good luck. And we realized and we found out that we could make it so that with all of that background, I'll have to ink this one up again because it'll dry.
Wow, demo it as well, fab.
Oh, you can see where I get it from.
Yeah, absolutely.
Frankie's in here, 2 demos.
I know he's at home now, isn't he? Wow.
Yeah, you see where I get it from.
What are you up to tonight on Cartload?
Dad, it's a quick dry ink, Dad. You've got to ink it and stamp it straight away.
I've got it there, the second one. Where do you want me? So it's there. But, 15 years ago, there is no way you could have produced a stamp like that.
Yeah.
And a little anecdote, I was down at one show, I think Sara was at Ali Pali, and I was down at Exeter. And there was a granny came round with her grandson, and she said, I'd love to be able to do that. But look at these. There was thumbs and fingers all over the place. So I gave her a rocker block, inked it up, and said, do that. And she did that, and I can still picture her face to this day.
Right, okay.
It was utter amazement. And then a little grandson turned around, who was 2, by the way, and she was 72. And he said, Granny, me. And so I had a smaller one, and I put a very basic leaf stamp on it. And he did, So I came up with the line, rocker blocks for anyone from 2 to 72.
Oh, right, okay.
And it just went from there. I don't know how many of these we've produced over the years, but
millions of rocker blocks.
But we've done quite a few.
Yeah.
And so, we all different sizes.
Different.
But we can now produce a stamp. You can see the over stamp there. We can produce a perfect image.
Yeah.
Every time.
Every time. And that's obviously the great thing about them, isn't it?